Hey, Black Belt Reads. French, February. I like to do these challenges every once in a while where I'll focus for a whole month on one thing, like one topic or one author or something. Every once in a while, just to sort of challenge myself to read things that I might not otherwise get to. In this case, I have some big books here that I wanted to read for a long time and might not have gotten to them if I didn't sort of challenge myself and hold myself accountable to reading these French authors. So we've got Swann's Way by Marcel Proust, Les Miserables by Victor Hugo, The Story of the Eye by Georges Bataille, and The Myth of Sisyphus by Albert Camus. So I tried to pick too big and too small. As it turned out, this one at the bottom, it's small, but man, I had to read slowly. I had to think very deeply about it. But we'll start with Swann's Way. In Search of Lost Time. Swann's Way by Marcel Proust. I picked this up because I've been told over and over he is one of the greatest writers of all time. And man, the writing was absolutely gorgeous, especially the first few chapters. So I'll go briefly on this one because I know I've talked about it before. I finished this either right before February or right as February was starting, but I'm including it in this video because it was really part of my French endeavor here. So I mentioned before the first couple of chapters were incredible. Just Marcel as a boy, just seeking the love and affection from his mother. They have a family get together, they have friends come over and have dinner with them. And if they have guests, his mother won't come up to the room and kiss him goodnight. She'll just stay down with the guests. When there's no one there but the family, his mother would always come up to his room at night and give him a kiss on his cheek goodnight. And it was like the highlight of his life. He just loved his mother so much, and he looked forward to those sweet kisses from mother. Beautifully written, absolutely gorgeous stuff. Just, I mean, every little boy like that, loves his mother. It was really funny. He gets, little schemes to try to get her to come up so that she'll kiss him goodnight. He's just a really awkward little kid, right? Of course, this is quite old, so, you know, the writing definitely old fashioned. You gotta really think about how old it is when it was written and put yourself in that time. Go slowly and read it. The only issue I had was the rest of the book really didn't live up to the first few chapters. It never really hit that high for me again. So I don't know. This is like a 10 book series or 8, 9, 10 books. I don't know if I'll continue. I've heard that book 2, I think, is the Garamont's Way. I've heard that's like the best book in the whole series, so I'll probably pick it up at some point. But honestly, I'll give this one like a 4 out of 5. Not quite a 5, just because it didn't quite hit the high that it did at the beginning for me. Maybe I just wasn't in the right headspace. Nothing really happens. It's kind of just slice of life. Just this kid living his life. And then, of course, a huge chunk is the neighbor, Swann. So I would highly recommend this if you are a fan of just beautiful writing and don't really need an exciting plot to keep you pushing through the book. All right, Victor Hugo. This was a much different experience. This was very much about the plot. The story in this book was incredible. One of the greatest books I've ever read, for sure. One of the best books of all time. I was so into it. I cried maybe 3 times while reading this book. I cry pretty easily from reading and watching movies and stuff, so that doesn't say too much, but My point is, it was absolutely beautiful, just really special. Now, of course, with a novel this big, there were moments throughout the middle that I was like zoned out because a lot of the historical stuff, is a little boring. But anytime it got to the character work, the plots, what was happening, I was so into it. The first like 25% was my favorite part. It was just so good. I had never seen the movie. I didn't know what to expect. I had no idea. You're following Jean Valjean, a convict who he's in prison because he stole bread because his family was hungry. I think it's his sister's children that need the food. Anyway, he goes to prison for stealing bread, and he's only sentenced for like a year or something, 3 years or something. He tries to escape. They catch him, they add to his sentence. He tries to escape again. They catch him, they add to his sentence. I'm like, oh, I'm just so frustrated with the guy reading. He ends up serving like 19 years in prison. Crazy, just for stealing some bread. So he comes out. He's a convict. He's very down and out. He's very conflicted with his, life, what he's become. And basically, he meets a bishop, a religious man who doesn't judge him and is extremely benevolent towards him. And it changes his life. And that was extremely powerful to read that. Um, I knew kind of from that moment that this was really something special. He meets a young woman, Fantine. I might not be the best at pronunciation on some of the French stuff, but man, her story arc was absolutely heartbreaking. She's a beautiful woman who was, had a baby out of wedlock, which in the old days was a huge deal, and everyone would judge her. So she tries to hide it. She gets caught. They all judge her for it, and she gets fired and all these things, and ends up basically as a prostitute on the streets, very much against her will. It's just she can't see any other way to survive, and she's basically scammed into sending these people money that are allegedly taking care of her daughter, and it's really heartbreaking. They shave her hair. She has people rip her teeth out so she can sell her teeth because she has beautiful hair and teeth. Oh, man, that part was hard. Of course, the prostitution part was very, very hard to read as well. Jean Valjean finds her, saves her in a sense, takes her in, but it's too late. She's dying. She's, diseased from living on the streets. She has like a lung disease, tuberculosis or something. She dies. Oh man, I cried. It's just like it was so powerful. And Jean Valjean promises he will find her daughter and he will save her and he will take care of her. And man, you gotta love Jean Valjean. He's completely flipped and become this incredibly benevolent character. One of the greatest characters of all time, really, truly. I can see why this is such a popular book. And a lot of people are probably really intimidated because it's so big, but it's not challenging. It's just big, it's just long. But man, I would highly, highly recommend it. I don't want to talk anymore about the plots. No spoilers. Just know that, when he finds this little girl, they make a life together, and it was just beautiful, beautifully written. There's a lot of French Revolution happening around this time. And I'm pretty sure Victor Hugo was a big proponent of the French Revolution, and that's a huge theme in this novel. Those were the parts that were pretty slow for me, but I appreciate what he was doing there. Just, history can be a little boring sometimes when he's just talking about the wars and the leaders and all these people and all these names and all these battles and that kind of thing. So if you are into extremely beautiful storytelling. Not like sentence structure as good as Proust, but still superb. Like he could put together beautiful sentences. He did the Hunchback of Notre Dame. I want to read that now just because Victor Hugo's writing was so amazing. Yeah, I was I was really into this. It's got to be a 5-star book. It's got to be 5 stars. How can you invest so much time into such an amazing story? As I was closing the book, um, I won't spoil the ending, but I mean, I closed the book finally at the end. Didn't crack the spine at all. How about that? I'm closing the book, and a tear just rolls down my face. Yeah, it was really special. I love when a piece of media like that can affect me so much. So 5 stars. All right, so after finishing that huge tome, I picked up the smallest French book I had in my collection. I've been meaning to read for a long time. Story of the Eye. I had no idea what I was getting into. Guys, it's going to get really, really weird from here on out. So if you're not into really, really dark stuff, you're welcome to dip out. I'm going to talk about a few things a little bit and try not to do any spoilers. This is not beautiful like Les Mis and Swan's Way. This is completely different. This is like transgressive literature, I think is what you would call it. I knew it was about sex. I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. I thought it was kind of like a horror novel, and it is in a way. Um, okay, here we go. Hold on. Actually, I have to pee real quick. Man, what is the fascination with peeing on each other? That is such a weird fetish. I don't think I'll ever understand that one. There's a lot of peeing on each other in this book. This is two young teenagers who are discovering and exploring their sexuality. And they are both extremely odd and perverse, like they like to pee on each other and do all these weird things. And it starts like that and progresses weirder and weirder and weirder all the way up to, murder. That's why I say it is kind of like a horror novel in that way. There's murder, suicide, yeah, animal stuff in here. There's a lot. There's a lot happening. Um, why is it called Story of the Eye? I can't even tell you. It's so messed up. Um, all that's being said, I did actually really enjoy the book. I read this in one sitting. I like dark stuff. I'm into, fucked up things now and then. I'm not a big fan of sex in literature. Like, you know, there's none of that in Les Miserables. It's like very beautifully written, very innocently written as well. There's even a scene where people get married in in the book, and Victor Hugo says, "And now, dear reader, we stay at the door while our married couple go in, because we should not invade on the the love that's about to happen." It's like beautifully written, and I actually really loved that paragraph. Yeah, this is this is not that. This is extremely detailed, extremely graphic, and there is definitely an eye. There is definitely an eyeball involved in this book. Um, if you can stomach it, if you can handle it, I would suggest this. I thought it was a good read. It made me feel some things. I read this in one sitting. It's very short. It's like 100 pages, and even the print is big. It's like not small print like Les Mis. Not only is it huge, but the print is tiny. It's insane. Okay, I don't know, 4 stars. Okay, if anyone's still here after that, the last book I have, The Myth of Sisyphus. by Albert Camus. This is an essay about his philosophical ideas. I read The Stranger by Camus a long time ago. Loved it. Think about that book sometimes. I always wanted to read more. Uh, I picked this one just specifically because it was the smallest book that I had of his. After reading those huge novels, I really wanted to just get as much as I could out of the French February. But that being said, it was a very small book, but man, it was deeply thought provoking and challenging read. It was like the most challenging for me, just because I don't think that I'm a very deep thinker. Some people will say I would, but I'm not like a philosopher. I'm interested in that kind of stuff, so I really struggled to grasp what he was getting at in this book. The myth of Sisyphus, that is the old, I think it's like Greek mythology of Sisyphus, who was like a king, and he's been punished by the gods, and his punishment is to roll this boulder up a hill. So he's got this huge boulder, he's rolling it up the hill, and every time he gets to the top, the boulder rolls back down. And he goes down and he does it again, endlessly. It's his punishment for tricking the gods, basically. And Camus uses that in this to talk about his philosophy of the absurd. Now, bear with me. A lot smarter people out there than me can probably speak better about this. What I took from it, I think he's trying to say that humans are always trying to find the meaning of life in this existence, and it can't be done. And the fact that we keep trying is absurd. And that's why most people will fall to religion, because it gives them that sense of meaning. And Camus doesn't sit well with this, which I don't either. So humans are just destined to think about why they're here and their meaning, and there's no answer, but they keep doing it. Just like Sisyphus keeps rolling that ball up the hill, and it's absurd. I think that's kind of what he's getting at. This book is, it's only 150 pages, but it's very, very deep, very thought provoking. He references a lot of philosophers and thoughts. Uh, yeah, I would definitely read this again and try to take more from it. He starts off by saying, humans, they do this over and over, and it's absurd. The only other option is suicide. And he thinks that suicide is not an option that you should take. Instead, you should just live your life to the fullest, be happy in what you do. He says Sisyphus should smile at his task, because the only other option is suicide, and he doesn't see that as a valid option. Yeah, I mean, it was really interesting. It was really good. I wish I was more intelligent and I could grasp these thoughts a little better, but yeah, the video is super long. I knew it would be. I could keep talking about these books for ages, but you know, I might start rambling. I appreciate you guys watching, and yeah, see y'all on the next one. Peace.